Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Engle. I'm the author of Be the Light That You Are. And I am really happy today to be talking with Rydall, who is the author of multiple books. He's a spiritual teacher, has a fascinating life story that I'm hoping he will share at least some of with us. And we're going to be talking about a number of things today, but in part, at least, about the importance of looking within ourselves for answers. So often we can get caught up in what the world tells us is the right thing for us or the blueprint that it lays out for us. And I think Derek and I are very much in sync in talking and teaching about going within and finding the answers there. So Derek, I'm just so happy to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Well, I want to give you a formal introduction. I know there are thousands and thousands of people who have worked with you, who know your work, who have read your books. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with Derek, I want to give you a little introduction here, a snapshot of who he is and what he does. He's been called part of the new generation of spiritual visionaries and thought leaders. And he's the author of the #1 Amazon and Barnes & Noble bestseller, Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, and the world's #1 expert on the revolutionary law of emergence. So we'll be talking more about that. He's also trained top executives at Fortune 500 companies, from American Express to Disney, in training them in empowered leadership, communications. He's coached celebrities and media professionals on creating conscious entertainment as well. He's also a regular Huffington Post contributor, and he's host of the top-rated Emergence podcast on iTunes, where he reveals cutting-edge spiritual principles and success strategies to achieve financial freedom and master productivity and creativity and really gain true wealth and happiness. So with his platform, he's touched people, literally thousands of people all over the planet, with his message on finding your path, living your purpose, and making a powerful impact. So I wish we had hours actually to talk about all of those things today. But in the next half hour or so, I'd love to just get a little bit more feeling for who you are, what drives you, and what led you to the teachings that you do. So I know that you've got a life experience that you talk about in some of your writings, a near-death experience, a brush with death, that really changed how you looked at yourself and at life. And I wonder if we could start there and ask you to just tell us a little bit, a recap of what happened and how it changed things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like so many people, I struggled for many years in self-improvement to get over my bad childhood, quote unquote, bad childhood, the pain, the heartbreaks, all this stuff. And after about a decade of self-improvement, the only thing I'd really improved was my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. So I got very good at describing the stories of my life and how they were the causes of my problems, from years of therapy and striving to improve myself and all that. But I was more full of angst, more full of frustration. And actually, it eventually drove me to become addicted to drugs and alcohol from the constant drive to improve myself. And I was never good enough, primarily because I was coming from a place of not enough to begin with. I eventually almost died of an overdose. And then I got out. I won't go into all the details, but I couldn't understand how all my efforts had landed me in the emergency room with an IV, nearly dying. I thought, well, I'm just not working hard enough or smart enough or trying to attract strong enough or something. So I redoubled my efforts. And as always, when you start again, you get a little momentum and things seemed to be going well. And then I ended up doing a film as an actor and everything fell apart again. The movie went sideways. They fired most of the cast, restarted the whole thing. I had a messy onset romantic breakup. And one day I just was done. I was like, when am I going to cut a break here? And I went diving in a coral reef alone. It's my first mistake. And I also prayed to just get lost from everything above, which was my second mistake. I very soon got lost within this coral reef and stuck and trapped in a pocket of coral. I was surrounded by walls of fire coral, that the touch of which was like 1,000 jellyfish stings. And underneath me, just inches beneath my body, were rows and rows of tall spiked coral that could just skewer you like a spike. And so I couldn't lift my head out of the water to see where I was because I would have been skewered by this. I couldn't swim down. There was nowhere down to swim. It was all of these spiked coral beneath me. And I was stuck at this level, just paddling with my fingertips to stay at that water level so I didn't fall on top of the spikes. And I couldn't swim, in any way, because again, I would have just pushed my body into the spikes. I was really, really stuck. And I had to even breathe in short staccato breaths, like, because if I breathed too deeply, I would have been punctured. And there were sand sharks starting to collect down below. And if I'm starting to bleed, and who knows what could have happened. And I couldn't touch the walls, as I said. And I didn't know where the exit was. And I didn't even know how I got in there. My mind went through all kinds of tapes and scenarios of how I might get saved. And eventually I ran out of those tapes. And then I began to fantasize about becoming successful after I died, because I wasn't going to make it out. So even the ego was looking for its 15 minutes of fame, in these final breaths. And at a certain point, the tape just ran its course. Like those old reel to reels that just like goes off the one and just, it's all over. And there was a silence. And I realized I was going to drown. And I feel a lot of emotion even thinking about it right now. It's hard to understand what that feeling's like. It's like, I'm not getting out of here alive today. And there was nothing left, no amount of cleverness or wit or charm or law of attraction or anything. There was nothing to do but to surrender. And I was exhausted. I was done. And in that moment, and it wasn't a bargaining like, God, if you get me out of this, I promise to go to church on Sunday. I tried that one early on in the process. It was really, truly unconditional surrender. And in that moment of surrender, there was a flash of awareness. And I saw the self I had been trying to improve for so many years was a fictional character, an amalgamation of societal pressures, peer pressures, parental conditioning. And he wasn't real. He was a character, a construct of my mind. And that nothing I ever did was going to ever make him enough. By definition, this was not enoughness. This was separation. This was limitation. And behind or around this sense of self was a larger self. And large isn't quite the right word, but the sense was complete, perfect, whole. And this self didn't need any improvement because it was complete. And it didn't need any fixing because it wasn't broken. And it was just a flash. But it was like in that awareness, there was a freedom. And then in the next moment, I still don't know exactly how, but I popped out of that water and was standing on top of the one place I could stand outside of that pocket, staring in. And again, I joke, I don't know if I walked on water, levitated, a wave lifted me. It was just the next moment, bam, I was standing outside, looking in, and this pocket I was stuck in, and the exit was just inches behind me the whole time. I just couldn't see it. And the labyrinth, this maze of coral, was like a metaphor for my life. I realized I'd been swimming through this maze, following all these brightly colored objects until I eventually got lost. And I was gasping and drowning internally. And now I was just literally experiencing it outside. And everything was shimmering. I could see the luminosity and the prana and the light around everything. And I slipped over the other side and I was free from that coral reef. But the guy that swam in was not the same guy that swam out. I joked, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. There was no putting Humpty back together again. Very, very soon after that, I pulled out of society. I tried to become a monk, and that didn't work out too well. I was fasting and silent for the first time, and I freaked out so badly that I broke into the monk's kitchen in the middle of the night and stole food out of their Sub-Zero refrigerator or whatever, and I was a mess. But I eventually cloistered myself in my apartment, and I went on this inner journey, and I discovered that the whole model of how we're meant to grow has been backwards. And I began to reread the ancient texts, Jesus, Buddha, et cetera, and realized, oh yeah, I know what they're talking about now. Like I got it finally. Whereas before, I would throw that stuff across the room. It was just didn't make sense to me. And I suddenly got it. Oh yeah, we're already perfect, whole, complete. It's already within us. The oak tree is already in the acorn. The acorn doesn't improve itself into an oak tree. The acorn isn't a broken oak tree that has to fix itself. It doesn't attract the oak tree. It is the oak. The acorn doesn't make up a vision. I want to be an oak. It's made of oak. There's a perfect pattern of infinite potential already encased in that seed. And when the conditions are right and they match the pattern in the seed, its potential naturally emerges. And that's true everywhere in the world. When the conditions match the pattern within a seed, its potential, its purpose emerges. And hence the law of emergence. And my book, Emergence, and the process I call emergineering, which is the engineering of the full emergence of your life or any specific aspect of it. So that's what really broke me through into the zeitgeist and began to teach, especially at a time when the law of attraction was so big. And I saw that there was what was so problematic about law of attraction, and realized that law of emergence was the next step, because it got you out of trying to make stuff happen from a place of not having, and instead begin to make it welcome from the place of it's already there. It's already here in the seed planted in the soil of your soul. And then that's what brings me to you today.
It's such a powerful story, such a powerful story. And that metaphor, as you said, it seems like it was a metaphor for your life, but I'm guessing that a lot of people watching will realize that it's a metaphor for their life too. That sense of being lost, grasping, drowning, not knowing where to turn. And then you've got that moment of quiet. And you said that word freedom, which I think is so important. The 10th principle that I write about in Be the Light That You Are is freedom, setting ourselves free, really by doing exactly what you described. Not that we have to almost, have that critical near-death experience, but that we get to that point where we realize it's really us and spirit. I know behind you, you've got that beautiful painting of spirit. And it seems like that's the thing that you're really talking about, is that moment. There it is. Yeah. When we recognize it's all about turning within rather than turning outside of ourselves. So for a lot of people, I know that happens when they face crises. It could be near death. It could be a bad diagnosis. It could be a divorce. It could be an accident. But we can also get there without the crisis. So can you speak a little bit about, in the work that you've done with the law of emergence, what do you see, what's like the number one thing that people need to know to get to that place without having to go through a crisis in their life?
Well, there's one statement by one of my mentors, Michael Beckwith, who was in The Secret, and he runs the Agape International Spiritual Center. And he says, the pain pushes until the vision pulls. Another way to look at it is that life, you want to know the meaning of life, the will of God, the real purpose of things. It's very simple. What do you call it, life or love? The only agenda of life is to fulfill the potential in every seed. And what that means is all there is, from the Big Bang to the seed in your mother's womb, to the seeds of every plant and flora, fauna, there's only one activity going on, and that is life's or love's or the divine's never-ending impulse to fulfill an idea, a pattern within every seed. So what that means, and it's always happening, it's always pushing, trying to push out the potential from within the seed to give expression to it. If you fight that, if you resist that, then it will create pain. And that is the signal of chronic pain or chronic problems, is a signal that you're trying to cope and survive in a world that is now too small for you. It means that you have stopped growing. You have stopped saying yes to the yes. You have stopped saying yes to the evolutionary impulse within you, to the seed within you that wants to sprout more and blossom more and give more fruits to the ecosystem of life. And so, or as it says in the Gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Or as Brené Brown says, unexpressed creativity is not benign. It is cancerous and it metastasizes. One of the first steps that I help people do, rather than try to be a problem solver and solve their problems, which makes you stuck at the level of the problem, is instead to tap into the vision, to move from being a problem solver to a vision holder. Because you cannot actually solve a problem. A problem is a frequency. It's an emblem of a state of consciousness. Like below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, you have ice and freezing. And no matter what you do, pour hot water all over the ice, whatever problem solving you think you're going to do, if you're still at below 32 degrees, you're going to keep producing more of the problem of ice. You have to rise above that frequency. You have to go to a higher temperature. And when you rise above, you don't solve the problem. The problem dissolves because it literally cannot live at that level. It doesn't exist there. It only exists here. So problem solving keeps you stuck at the level. And that's why Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created it. And why he later said, arrows of hate have been shot in my direction many times, but they can no longer harm me because they come from a world I no longer inhabit. He stopped trying to solve that problem. He evolved. So problems aren't solved. They dissolve as we evolve, and we evolve by becoming more interested in the vision or the seed pattern planted in the soil of our soul. Who am I really? Why am I really here? What am I here to bring forth? What does that look like? What does that feel like? If I was guaranteed success, what would I truly desire to be, do, create, and contribute? So we have to begin to become vision holders and no longer problem solvers. And that begins to move people out, raise their frequency, open the aperture of their awareness to greater possibilities again, and to more of the energy of the life force, so that it can start flowing and circulating again. Because if you're not growing, you're stagnating and you're beginning the process of dying. But when you open again to the vision of possibility, life circulates again. And wherever there's more circulation, there's more life, there's more abundance, there's more goodness. So that's how I work with people. That's the first step.
Great. Well, it reminds me too of what A Course in Miracles says about problems, that it says there's really only one problem, even though it seems as though we have billions of different flavors and forms of problems in this world. It says there's really only one, and that is the belief in separation, that we can be separate from ourselves or one another or God, spirit. And so the only solution, one problem, one solution, the solution is to remember that we can never be separate from ourselves or from God or from spirit. And it seems very much different words, a little different way of looking at it, but very much what you're saying about just moving into a higher understanding, a deeper understanding of who we are and our connection to spirit, so that that circulation starts happening again. I know too, so many people, I think, I've certainly experienced this, and so many people that I work with have as well, that when we're talking about purpose and passion, people have such a great desire to discover that about themselves, but there is also that fear that can be right there, right at the kind of the gatekeeper, guarding the door and saying, oh, don't go in to that purpose and passion because there'll be something there that you don't want to know about yourself. And 100% of the time, whenever we really start to go within, we find light and we find beauty and abundance and creativity. So when you're working with people, I'm sure that you encounter this too. What do you do to help people with that fear that they encounter along the way?
Yeah, well, so the first step is, getting clear of what you truly desire, truly want, the vision for your life, the seed pattern of potential planted in the soil of your soul. And the next step is you need to cultivate the congruent conditions for that to grow, just like a gardener cultivates the seed in the soil. And as you do that, what's going to start to come up, the weeds in that fertile soil whatever was there under the soil, as you turn it and cultivate it, it's going to start to grow too, or it's going to start to come to the surface. So yeah, invariably, as you do this work, whatever is not in alignment with you truly living your yes, living your authentic truth, going for your potential, etc., the life of your dreams, that's going to come up. So those beliefs of all the reasons why you're not already living your potential and you're not already going for it, that's going to come up. So we have to work with that. And one of the core things with that is the shadow. The shadow is, for example, let's say, as part of my vision, I want to, start my own business, or I want to get in the best shape of my life or something. And this is more predominant with women because it's a feminine shadow, but it can absolutely be in men who have a higher, more evolved feminine nature, is the shadow of selfishness, as an example. It's one of the big blocks from people going for it because that seems selfish, or maybe that seems narcissistic, or that seems arrogant, or that seems greedy. And because they might have gotten the message or the conditioning early on that you need to take care of other people, or you need to put other people ahead of you, or spiritual or religious conditioning that says you need to put other people ahead of you, whatever, it creates a shadow. Whereas when we're younger, we just naturally, before we get conditioned, it's like, oh, this is what I want. I'm going to go for it. This is what I need. I'm going to ask for it. This is who I am. I'm going to express it. And then we get parents, teachers, peers, siblings say, God, you're so selfish. Don't you know about those starving kids in China? Or you need to be quiet. Kids are meant to be seen and not heard. Or don't you see how busy mommy is or daddy is? Go to your room. You're whatever. And so we get the message, oh, it's bad to want what I want. It's even bad to know what I want because it's dangerous or painful. It's bad to go for what I want, or it's bad to express who I am. And so we repress those parts of us. And then we create counterbalancing psychological structures so that, okay, don't want too much, don't be too much. But if I don't want too much and I just help mommy or daddy, now they're happy. Now they love me. Now they give me what I need: love, affection, a sense of value. And we grow up with that. So I help people to unravel that map of reality that they've created, and the survival kit they've created as a result of that map of reality that they've created. They create a map says, I'm not enough, and there's not enough out there, and I'm pretty much on my own. So I need to strive and struggle and acquiesce and take care of others and not be too much and not want too much. And that's because that's their map of reality. And they go on and live that. And initially that supports the building of other structures. Like if I have a shadow of selfishness, I'm going to develop more selflessness, right? That's one of the polarities. But eventually that's going to start causing problems. I'm going to not be getting my needs met. I'm going to get burned out, resentful, overwhelmed, addicted, compulsive behaviors. And then that's when we need to turn and embrace the parts of us we've rejected. Or if we're afraid, if we're going for success, we'll have shadows around what are we afraid people are going to think of us if we succeed? Again, arrogant, cocky, too much. Or if we're wealthy, we're mean somehow, we're greedy. All of these are shadows. Or it could be the shadow of fear of failure. Failure is a shadow, being a loser, being inadequate, being unworthy. So the point is, I help people identify where do they have the brakes on. That's where the shadow is. Where do they have the fears and the judgments? That's where the shadow lives. And then once we embrace the shadow, because this is really important, it's not about getting rid of anything. There's nothing missing in you and there's nothing wrong with you. There's a misunderstanding. There's a misperception. Your greedy, needy, selfish parts of you are beautiful. As Jesus said, love your enemy, and the enemy is in your own household. So when you love that part of you, you discover, you redeem it, and you reclaim its true value, its true essence. Selfish leads to self-care. Greedy leads to the willingness to have a big life and to be a big expresser of life and to have all the abundance of life. Some of the aggressive, dominating, controlling energies, when you embrace them, it leads to you accessing your power and your authority. So we turn all that around by embracing all those parts of us. We fall in love with ourselves. we activate and access our greater power and potential, and then we become naturally a healing influence, the light of the world for all the people that likewise struggle with these shadows. It's why Jesus could be such a healer without ever saying a word, because his field had been so purified through loving all of himself and realizing all of him was the divinity, that just being in that field, if you had those blockages, where the light shines, the darkness is no more. So that is also what I help take people through, and help them overcome and ultimately embody. And that's a condition that allows for that seed of potential to emerge in their life.
Beautiful. Yeah, again, there are just so many similarities in the way that we talk about these things, especially with that idea of being the light, that we really are called to be the light that we came here to be, and in its fullest expression, like you said, to just let that seed express its full potential. So one of the lines that I love from your Emergence book is that there's a difference between channeling potential and achieving potential. So could you speak to that a little bit? Tell us what you mean by that difference.
Yeah, I don't remember that line, but it makes sense with what I say. And that is, achieving can be perceived as getting or doing or being something you're not, that you weren't before. Again, the acorn doesn't achieve oakhood in that, dualistic way of speaking. Real achievement, real success, or the full activation or actualization of your potential is an inside out job. It's coming from within you. You're not making it happen. You're making it welcome. And then you're becoming a channel or an instrument of it, of that expression. It also can be broken down in terms of understanding the different stages of growth, spiritual growth. This was a paradigm also handed down by Michael Beckwith. I don't know if he got it from somewhere else, but the 4 stages are: to me, life's happening to me. And so I'm a victim. And the second stage is I'm happening to life. And so now I'm a creator or a manifester. I have control. I move from victim, I release victim, and I embrace control. Now I'm happening to life. I'm the doer. I'm the achiever. I'm the one making it happen. And that's where, there's valuable things. That's where at the first level, you just are Protestant work ethic, work hard, don't be a victim, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get what done. The second level is the metaphysical version of that, is law of attraction. Law of attraction is basically the same thing. You're just doing it now mentally and emotionally versus as much physically. So the problem with that, though, is it still has that separation. I'm happening to life. Life is out there, and I'm going to do all this stuff to attract it to me. Still separate. The third stage is you are a channel. Now life is not happening to me. I'm not happening to life, but life is happening through me. I'm the channel for something bigger than my idea of myself, bigger than my desires. I'm now opening to something bigger, something more. And now I become a channel of the more and the more and the more that's unfolding. And the fourth stage, finally, because there's still a sense of separation. There's still a sense of there's me as a channel, and then there's life or God as something else, even if it's within me or through me. And the final stage is as me. I am that I am. Before Abraham was, I am. I am the way and the truth and the light. So those are the 4 stages: to me, to it, through me, as me. And so emergence is in the third stage, is you're a channel. You move from being merely the creator or the controller or the manifester or the manipulator to being the channel. And I want to say another piece here.
Sure.
I'm sorry, real quick. Another important piece is the important piece about this is when you're just in the second stage, attraction, manifesting, you can use the law of mind to manifest things that are not in your best good or your best interest. I remember a guy that manifested a Mercedes and spent weeks and weeks just in torment and suffering because it kept breaking down, kept having to go in the shop. He couldn't afford it. You can manifest things that are not for the highest good of you or the highest good of everyone else. In fact, in its extreme, the use of metaphysical principles by the ego in its extreme is the Antichrist. That's actually the meaning of the Antichrist. It's one who has mastered the metaphysical principles to influence, impact, attract, manifest, but it's coming from the ego. It's coming from separation. And so we can destroy our lives and the lives of others through law of attraction and those kinds of things. So at a certain point, it stops working as well, especially if you are on a progressive spiritual path and you are praying and desiring to really make a positive difference in your life and fulfill your purpose and make an impact. You move into the third stage where now you open up to a bigger vision and a bigger possibility for the highest good of all. And here's the one thing I'll also say about the third stage. It requires you to die to your old self over and over again. And that's the stage Jesus was teaching when he said, if you save your life, you'll lose it. But if you're willing to lose your life for my sake, you'll have life eternal. That's what he was talking about, this constant death and rebirth cycle that you must go through as that third stage channel, because you never can be attached to this is who I am now, or this is what it's all about now, or this is the truth now. No, you cannot live on yesterday's manna. You have to keep letting it go, keep letting it go, keep being available. And then eventually the end of that journey is you become truly embodied in oneness. And of course, that's just the beginning of another journey after that.
And it really circles right back around to your experience, your near-death experience, that there was a death that took place there. Yeah. And the new life could truly be born.
Exactly.
And it seems like what you just described too is the deeper meaning of living in the moment. I think sometimes that phrase can be misunderstood, but what you're saying is being in the moment of no past, no future, because you've just let all of that go. And you truly are in the moment of listening to spirit within you, to that connection with something higher, so that that can be born. Well, we're coming up on the end of the half hour here, and I just want to ask you, for anything additional that you'd like to add, maybe in the form of, I always like to think of, for someone like you who has so much wisdom, so much that you are teaching, is there ever any one thing that you think, oh, if everybody in the world could just know this one thing, this world would be a better place?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fundamental, if I could boil my mission down to one thing, I call it becoming resourced. And what I mean by that is we live in a world conditioned by the belief that we need to get resources, the things outside of us are the source of what we need. And we need to move from resource back to the source and become resourced again. And that's what it means to be resourceful. To be resourceful means to be connected to source again and living from the finished kingdom within you. Nirvana, Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven within. Stop worrying about all the resources outside. Buddha taught the same thing. All the great masters, at the end of the day, they're only ever teaching that one thing. It's all within you. Make your number one priority the reconnection to, the resourcedness to, get back to that. When you have that, you have the source of everything at your disposal. And that's it. That's the end. If I can get people to that, the work's done. Or even to some extent of that, even just somewhat turning on the inner tap and being connected to that, and it will take it from there.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of the insights. I love all of the imagery that you bring to this and how clearly you lay it out with so many wonderful metaphors. It's just so easy to grasp, but I hope everybody who's listening and watching will really, I know, will be touched by this. For more information about Derek and your work, please go to DerekRydall.com, and that's DerekRydall.com. Derek, I wish you blessings and so much gratitude and just great wishes. Yeah.
I want to just say, just to get people a little more specific, because you can get lost at a website, just a general website. You guys can also check out the Emergence podcast, Emergence on iTunes, or the Abundance Project podcast on iTunes. And then if you're interested in the books, Emergence or the Abundance Project, You can also just go to myemergencebook.com or getemergencebook.com or theabundanceprojectbook.com. And you'll notice when you get a copy of that, you're going to get a ton of other like programs, coaching, all kinds of support around that. So you have you can tap into that, listen to the trainings, get into that today. A lot of free stuff available for you guys. So take advantage of all those free goodies.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks so much. And
thank you.
For people who would like to know more about Be the Light That You Are as well, you can go to my website, debraengle.com, DebraEngle.com. And there's lots of information there as well. So we'll be posting this video there along with other places too, so that you can watch this and other interviews. Again, Derek, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom with us, and really wishing you blessings in all of the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for everyone watching, thanks so much for your time as well. I just encourage you to keep being and shining the light that you are, and wish you well and a blessed day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.